and welcome to Two Words Wolves Pod. I'm Ron Acton, and with me is Andrew Carlson from Canis Hoopus. Andrew, how you doing?
Doing well. I wish it was under better terms because I don't know about you. I threw off my entire sleep schedule this week with a 10 o'clock tip on Tuesday and a 9:30 tip on Wednesday, all to watch some pretty pathetic basketball from the away team. So like I said, I wish it was under better circumstances, but yet here we are.
Yeah, I actually made the correct decision, or what ended up being the correct decision, and I didn't even try. Didn't try to stay up, just went to bed and watched them in the morning. And it kind of worked out because I started just like clipping together clips and whatever else I could find and being snarky about the bad performances. Yeah, it's not great. Not great in Timberwolves land.
Well, you not trying kind of masks what the Timberwolves did as well. So I don't think you can hang your head about that one on the night of the game.
I'm not the only one not giving out 110% or whatever.
Correct, 100%.
All right, well, let's dive into that. The Wolves have now lost 3 in a row, back-to-back games out in LA on Tuesday and Wednesday. And that combined with the Orlando loss on Saturday afternoon, it's a pretty brutal 3-game losing streak. By a combined total of 66 points. I saw a stat out there basically since Ant's rookie year. It's the worst 3-game stretch in terms of just raw point differential that they've had in the past 4 seasons, 5th being this season. And I'll start with this. I'm usually not the type of guy that takes even awful performances and tries to like say, oh, this is a referendum, or good games, and say like this is a referendum on who they are. This is indicative of this, that, and the other. But these last 2 games and 3 games, I think it's time to really look back. And maybe we should have been doing this 20 games ago or whatever, but it's really, I think it's time to like look at what this team is as of now. And we'll break down the individual games, but I actually wanted to start big picture. And the first thing I looked up after they gave up 153 points, a regulation tied for franchise record for the Clippers. Where were they offensively and defensively? So the Wolves are now 12th on offense this for the season, 12th on offense, 11th on defense, 11th net rating. And my first kind of general question to you, to the public, to the Wolves themselves is, what about this team has given us any indication that they are championship caliber and can win 3 or 4 straight playoff series? Because I'm frankly running out of certainly stats, certainly like statistics. There are none, 0, zilch, nada. This is just by advanced metrics, raw, simple metrics. They're not a championship contender. For reference, so they're 12th offense, 11th defense, 11th net. Last season, at the end of the year, they were 8th, 6th, and 4th. So way better in all 3 of those categories. And I even, on this date, 12 months ago, March 12th, 2025, they were 10th on offense, 2 spots better, 6th on defense, 5 spots better, and 8th net, 3 spots better. At this point in the season last year, despite winning 3 fewer games than they do now, they were a better team. They were playing better basketball, even as if the record didn't show it, even as back then we were certainly frustrated with the team. And I'm just kind of, I don't know where else to go. We'll dive into it more, but like, let me start with there. What aspect of the team, if any, indicates that they are the type of team that can win a championship? Or are you closer to my side where it's like, I don't think, at least sitting here now, 66 games in the season, maybe that can change in the next 16 games, but sitting here right this second, they're just not.
Optically, for me, I think the one piece of this team that is championship caliber, or one thing that you can still kind of hang your hat on, is this team's bench is good. I don't, and again, I would assume it was out in LA, and the Lakers game was not good either. The bench unit is more fun to watch than the starters, and this team is truly 8 players deep for a playoff rotation. So that is the main thing I would say, and for me right now, really, it is the only thing. I mean, the defense is too inconsistent. The offense is downright putrid at times. But I tweeted this out from the main Canis account. Like, it's happened in past years and it is happening right now that the bench unit is more fun to watch than the starting group. And that is something that I guess could be indicative of Wolves teams past that have gone on and had some successes, and is a really good sign for the playoffs, because inevitably what history tells us is, if you're a team that can win a couple playoff series, one of those bench players is going to end up being a playoff stud. Um, and it could be Io DeSumo. It could end up being Naz Reid. He could end up like having a couple playoff series like he has previously. Um, Not sure, but there are a lot of options on this bench that could be that player that steps up for this team in the postseason. Do I see it now? No. But that would be the one thing that I would say at this point. If there was one part that I needed to say would be of somewhat championship caliber, I think the bench unit's pretty good, and I think that they come in and give the starters a pretty good break. And I think that there's a lot of rotations that Chris Finch can find at points of games in which they went in that 8-1 stretch, that can be profitable. And I think the Kyle Anderson addition has helped maybe suppress some of those Nas Randall necessary front court minutes when needed. Is that going to be a thing in the playoffs? Maybe not. But again, these are just things that there's options off of the bench. Whereas at the beginning of the season, and we were still trying to wonder what this team was going to be like towards the end of the year. I mean, there were, I'll be generous and say 7 guys that you would say would maybe be in a playoff rotation. And Mike Conley was heavily relied upon, and he's not anymore. So that's the one place that I would look at.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I guess my point is, like, if they have a championship caliber bench and Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert and all of that, and they've had an incredibly healthy season, why are they on pace to win 49.5 games? That's kind of what I keep coming back to, is that why are they 40-26? This team has way too much talent to be 40-26 in a year where they're largely healthy. I mean, even like Kyle Anderson missed a game, Io DeSumo missed a game, maybe 2-3. We'll see what ends up being for him. But like, even like those type of injuries, the Wolves have had very little of them.
Completely agree, and I don't disagree with you on that either. Like, I don't disagree with you at all as to, like, state of the union is not great, and there's definitely some things that we'll get into that are wrong with this team. I agree, this team is too talented. I'll let you finish your point, but I do agree with you to that degree. I just think that if there's one of those things that this team that you can point to and say, hey, this could maybe tip the scales in their direction in May, it would be that bench unit.
Yeah, and to your point, when I point to their current record, they haven't had this bench until now, and I do think that, like, given if they had this bench from the start of the season, this version of this bench, that I think next season's team will have a closer to this quality bench next season. As they probably can and will bring back Kyle Anderson if they want Bones back. I don't think that will be a difficulty for them to retain him. Io contract needs to be figured out, but again, if they want to have him back, they'll be in the driver's seat compared to the rest of the league to do that. So I agree with you there. I'm more looking at the top of the roster here. I think is kind of where I want to talk about, because look, the Clippers game is a good example. Anthony Edwards scores 36 super efficient points, 11 of 17 from the floor, 3 of 8 threes, 11 of 12 from the line. Like, a great offensive game from him. It's hard to really, especially if you take out the first couple minutes, which probably you shouldn't be doing, when the Wolves had 5 straight turnovers to open the game. But my biggest takeaway is just, I don't think Anthony Edwards is ready to win a championship. And I promise you, I hate the hot take stuff. I hate it. I think like shows like First Take are like really detrimental to basketball, especially, but just like sports. I'm not doing that. I just mentally, and a lot of just straight up portions of his game are not ready yet. And I keep coming back to watching this Oklahoma City Thunder team, which I get in some ways, they of course are the bar. They're the favorites to win the title again. They won it last year. Shea won the MVP last year, and he's on track to win it again. So at a certain point, it is the bar, and it's probably fair to say, like, if they're a half step behind the Thunder, you're still doing all right. So I get, but like, this Timberwolves team is miles behind them. And Anthony Edwards is a significantly lesser player at this exact moment than Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. And there's good reasons why that is the case, especially in the Ant Shea comparison. There's 3 years of age. Ant at 24 is probably better than Shea at 24. Maybe not. I'd have to go look at it. I'm pretty sure Shea made first team All NBA when he was 24. I would have to look at it. I don't know it's going to be a toss up between like the top 4, Jokic, SGA, Luka, and Wemby are locks, assuming they get to the games played. That 5th slot is going to be like Cade, Ant, Maxey, Brunson. Like, maybe he does make first team All NBA, but like, the night-to-night consistency from Anthony Edwards is just not even close to good enough. And I 100, we'll talk about this too. I 1000% agree that like a lot of that will go away in the playoffs, right? Like I am so confident that whoever the Wolves get in the first round, Ant is just going to go throw haymakers all over the board. And I think they will win that first round series, mostly because I think when you give this Timberwolves team time to prepare, they are as good as they can possibly look. They are 8-1 in the past 2 first rounds, and like the Phoenix series, like just not even close. And a solid Laker team they pretty much destroyed from start to finish. But like these last 3 games are a perfect example of like the consistency just has to be there. And this is something I've been hammering home all year. I think I agree about like the turn it up in the playoff stuff, but like a certain amount of consistency has to be there in the regular season, more than what it is that. And I think a big reason that they lost game 4 of the West Finals last year was that exact consistency stuff. Game 3, Ant came out defensively just like a bull in a china shop. Absolutely, like stole the ball. What the start of this Clipper game looked like. Just dominated them. The Wolves won by 50 in that game. And at the start of game 4, it was back to like the defense was fine that game. The offense was fine that game. It was just a close game that they lost. But like that, whatever they did in game 3, they just were not able to bottle it up and put it to the rest of that series. And I think to win a title, you're going to, again, I'm not asking you to beat the Thunder by 50 every night, right? But like, it just has to be there a little bit more during the regular season. You can turn it up, say, making up a number, 20%, but you can't double it. Like that's not how this works. And the perfect example is their offense against the Magic and the Lakers was downright terrible. And especially in the Lakers game, Ant was the biggest part of that. And of course, they guard Ant, like they're basically almost guarding Ant 5-on-1. And so if in that game, if you guarded Ant straight up, he would have torched you like he torches everyone. And then on the flip side, they give up. So 2 games, their offense is beyond terrible. And then they come into the Clipper game, and the exact opposite end of the floor is as bad as it's ever been the entire season. I just don't think that if they had struggled on offense again, and that was the reason the Clippers blew them out, I would just be like, yeah, they're in an offensive funk. They need to figure it out. That's not a good sign. But like, it's something you can directly point to and be like, they need to fix that. They have 16 games to do it. But when you're violently shifting which end of the floor is the issue, that raises way bigger flags to me. And so like going back to my point about the stats, I just think like this stuff matters about beyond like we should eventually start talking about the actual games instead of like the indicators or whatever. If you're going up against a team in the playoffs that has a better record, better regular season record than you, better regular season net rating than you, and the better top player in the series, there's probably like very few instances in the history of the NBA where that team that is down those 3 categories wins the series. You got to have one. Last year when the Wolves played the Lakers, they had a better net rating than that team. And that was why you looked at it and go, something about this Laker team is a little bit off. The Wolves can beat them. And same with the Wolves had a better record than the Warriors, but like It applied there. The Wolves are fourth in net rating last year. They lost to one of the teams that had the better net rating and the better player. And so that is what I'm kind of think the Thunder have you beat in all three of those categories. The Spurs now have you beat in all three of those categories. And maybe there's a glimmer of hope that you can say, hey, Wemby's still inexperienced. Next year they'll have you in all three categories. Ant Wright the second is better than Wemby. That gets to playoffs versus regular season. But like you go, what about this team makes you think that they can beat the Thunder? I don't have any.
Yeah, but and to your point though, it's like it's not necessarily the better player. It's like which player does their team know is more bankable on a night to night basis. You know what I mean? Like everyone on the Thunder knows what Shea is going to do. His game is very cut and dry. Like they know the spots that he's going to get to. They know when he's going to shoot the ball. They know that it's probably going to go in. They know the types of times of the game that he likes to take over. Like Shea is very methodical in how he plays the game. Wemby, his team knows exactly what they're going to get from him on a night to night basis, both defensively, offensively, inside out game, what he's been able to do this year, both from outside the 3-point arc and inside as well. That's changed from year to year. Like Wemby this year has been much more decisive inside and has kind of gotten rid of those like mid-range post-ups that he had been doing in previous years. Like his team, my point is his team knows, the players around him know what he's going to do and what is probably bankable from him on a night-to-night basis. I mean, Denver's struggling, but it's a similar story with Jokic. It's why Denver finds himself in the same situation every year. And right now, just like he just doesn't have that. Like if he goes crazy in the first quarter, what is he going to do for the rest of the game? If he is a passive first quarter, what is he going to do for the rest of the game? Whether he comes out swinging, whether he comes out missing, or like, is it going to be a night where Ant passes a lot? Like, you just don't know what Ant is going to do on a night to night basis, which is fun from a viewing perspective. I mean, it's a blast to watch Anthony Edwards. He's in my mind the most fun player in the NBA to watch. Might be a little biased there, but from an actual playing with someone perspective, that becomes pretty hard. And I think that you see that throughout the team. You know, Julius Randle, and you pair that with Julius Randle, who is the same thing. I mean, you never know what what kind of a game you're going to get out of Julius Randle. And you have those two variables at play, and it just feels like shit runs downhill, right? And so when that happens, it leaves a lot of things left up to chance for a relatively passive group in general. And so to your point, like we were talking about this the other day, you and I were texting about this the other day with SGA, like going back to what I was saying earlier, the Thunder know what they're going to get from him. He is bankable. It is going to happen. And if Shea is not doing this, the other players around him, whether it's J-Dub or Chet, like they slide right into their roles and they know exactly what to do. And I'm just not sure that that's the case with this team. And I don't think that there's like a true, hey, I'm going to do this if Ant and Julius can't do that, or I'm going to do this if only Julius is on tonight. Type of, I don't want to say hierarchy, but I guess that is what it is. Like it's a hierarchy of who's doing what, whose roles are what. Is that a Chris Finch thing? Maybe. Is that a team thing? Is it a personality thing? I would maybe tend to lean a little bit more towards that. I still think clearly Chris Finch is not absolved in this, but there are some just like there's a lot of passive personalities in the locker room. There's not a lot of people who grab the bull by the horns and say, hey, I'm doing this tonight, outside of Ant. And so that's kind of where my head goes with this team right now, is you just see some of those things starting to come around to bite them. And at this time of the year, the last 2 years, that was not the case. And so that's why some of these alarm bells are kind of starting to sound, because like this should not be happening on March 11th or March 10th. You should understand these things at this point in the season, and this team just doesn't. And so you hope that they do in the first round and they can advance and maybe get out of the first round. but it does feel like there's just something. There's a sense of complacency um, there right now, a sense of passiveness, a sense of complacency, and maybe sprinkle in a little bit of throwing your hands up and just not knowing what to do.
Yeah, and I definitely think like comparing Ant's consistency to Shea is not the bar. Shea is the most consistent player in the history of the NBA. He's about to pass Wilt. Did they play tonight? I would assume they probably play tomorrow. But like, what if he scores 20 points in his next game? He's going to set the record above Wilt Bleepin Chamberlain for most consecutive 20-point games. Like, Shea is not the bar for isn't the bar we need to see Ant get to, but it's got to be like half as much and not like this crater. And I think something that's kind of, we talk about effort a lot, right? And the players do too. And I'm starting with that topic. I'm starting to get to the point where it's like that feels like an excuse for like other real bigger issues, more concrete issues that are going on with this team. And I think a good example of this is we always talk about they play down to the level of their opponents. And that's absolutely true. You just got beat up by Luka Doncic and Kawhi Leonard.
Well,
Those are
and to your point earlier, like with the Shea thing, sure, maybe it isn't completely fair that we are holding Ant to that standard right now, just with Shea at the point of the career that he's in. But what about Luka Doncic? Like his team knows what they're probably going to get out of him offensively, but defensively, I actually thought Luka played a pretty good defensive game on Tuesday night. Like he was pretty assignment sound. He was in gaps. But you're definitely not going to get that on a night to night basis from him specifically. I mean, on or off the ball. If he has a bad offensive night, then all hope is gone. I just think that that's kind of the type of more of the type of player that Ant is right now. Is obviously immensely talented. Everyone knows what you can do, but you don't really know what you're going to do, nor does your team. And I think those things have come back around for Luka, both with the Lakers and with the Mavericks.
Yeah, and I think like Luka's a good comp like for Ant's defense a lot of the times with the quality of the defense, right? And the difference is Ant is just not as good of an offensive player as Luka is. And that's again not the bar. We don't need like Luka's probably might end up as one of the greatest offensive players of his generation, right? Like if Ant is 90% of Luka, he's gonna be a Hall of Famer. But it like were you if Ant was just regular mediocre on defense, this team would be looking a lot better. But I wanted to save defense specifically for later for talking about the Clippers game. You mentioned Finch, and I do want to talk about Finch because look, I think letting him go midseason would be the stupidest idea ever, and I think not reevaluating your coach every offseason would also be not like you should reevaluate where your coaching staff is at every offseason, right? Basically barring a championship. I like last season, great season. You should reevaluate what things are going well, what things aren't. It's the last couple months, having the first time I've started to like wonder maybe Chris Finch is not the right person to lead this team moving forward. So I'll leave that there and also bring up that I think many of these issues, these consistency, the effort issues that I already said that is a bit of an excuse, but do exist as well. I think that those issues fall far more on the players than the coach. I think if NBA players need their coach to make sure that they're following the game plan, need their coach to make sure that they're playing with the requisite effort every night, those are not the right players to have on the roster in the first place. That's really what I believe. Now, is Finch absolved of all criticism? Of course not. Like at a certain level, even if it's not even fair, at a certain level, it's on him. Everything like that's true. That like true of basically everything. And I think following the game plan, which was something Dante mentioned after the Lakers game, which is remembered when I was down in Miami, and like was like, yeah, sometimes we don't follow it. It's kind of like we do, which he basically admitted to after the Clipper game too. But I think a lot of times, especially like both offensive defense, I don't like you watch a Laker game. There's no way that was the game plan for their offense. Was Ant to just dribble, step back three, and it's probably fair to say on an average night, does Ant make only one of those 10 threes? Probably not. Makes two or three, and maybe that, like, there's no way that was what he was supposed to be doing there. And defensively in this Clippers game, leave it for the actual game breakdown, but like him and Julius were just not at all following any game. There was no game plan. And so at a certain point, and again, it's if the players aren't following the game plan, at a certain point that is on the coach, fair or not, right? But to me, it's just far more on the players to actually execute the game plan. And Finch said that more applies to the Laker game. He didn't feel like the game plan was really as much the issue in the Clippers game. I would probably tend to agree with that. But my last point on Finch is that, almost like fair or not, whether I think Finch is the right person to lead this team moving forward, which I am like basically sitting on the fence until after the playoffs. These are the type of, regardless of all of that, these are the type of performances that get a coach fired. They just are. And that's not a criticism of Finch, that's a criticism of the players. If you like this guy, you can't be playing like this. Like, you're gonna get him fired. This ownership group and this GM did not hire this man. That is, he's done well. I'm not saying they don't have a good relationship. They absolutely do. But like, they're not tied to him in the same way that other people are. Like, I do not believe that Chris Finch is on the hot seat. I don't necessarily think he should be. But like, these are the type of seasons, these are the type of losses where you're giving up 150 after scoring 92 2 games. These are the type of performances that get a coach fired. And it's up to the players as much as it is the coaches to like not play like this anymore.
Yeah, man. I think if this performance happened right before the All-Star break, we would be talking about the mid-season thing a little bit more. Like, not saying that there's any sort of heat on Chris Finch's seat.
They were talking about the doldrums of the seasons like weeks before the week before the All-Star break, and all of us writers were like, "You guys got weeks here, bud."
Yeah, like there's a few weeks here.
I'm fully aware the weather is dog crap outside, but like, we are not in the doldrums of the season yet. Like,
hey man,
halfway through
get yourself a happy light in the locker room and shine it on yourself for 15 minutes before the game. Like, at the end of the day, I think if the Clippers performance happened like late January, like, I think that the conversation, like, you're right. This is a conversation that ramps up some of these conversations.
They literally did get blown up by the Clippers like right before the All-Star break.
Oh, that Sunday night, that Sunday afternoon Super Bowl Sunday game.
Yeah, you were there.
Yeah, that was a classic. Gosh, how could I forget that one? But I'm right there with you. I do think that this is the first time that I've said, you know, it feels a little stale. It kind of does right now. And I personally, for me, I'm right there with you. We actually haven't even talked about this one before the show or anything like that. I do need to see the playoffs before I have any sort of opinion on whether Chris Finch should be the coach of this team next year or not. I mean, if you lose in the first round, you know, that's where we start to have that conversation. It depends on how the second round goes. Let's have the conversation. Right now, it just feels like whether the answers that he is providing, like the Lakers playing the Wolves extremely aggressive defensively. I know Jake Painting had a couple of things on Twitter about this. Just playing extremely heavy in the gaps. Honestly, playing defense like the 21-22 Wolves did with Patrick Beverley. There needs to be a counter to that. And if the players aren't executing the counter, or if the counter isn't good enough after you're taking timeouts, I'm not sure what the issue is there, but there's something that has to give there. And there is a part of that is on the coaching staff. And it feels like that just happens too many times. That the Lakers game is not something that stands out as a, wow, the Wolves had no counter to what the other team threw at them, or wow, they came out with no energy.
My point would be is they do have the answers. This is the same coverage the Suns ran against them in the playoffs, and maybe you could argue about different personnel between the Suns and this Lakers team. I don't think either team is much different. Ant made the correct plays in the Phoenix game, and he did not in the Lakers game. And that goes back to my point of like, it's to me, it's far less on the coaching staff than it is on the players themselves to make the right plays. I mean, in that Laker game, Julius had a couple step back threes. Those need to be out. Those should have been out of the offense months ago. And he's
Correct.
still taking 2 or 3 of those a game. So like, that's kind of my point is like, yes, they like, it doesn't seem like the coaching staff has the answers, and maybe they don't have the answers enough. I far more in the camp of they are providing the Wolves with half decent strategies. The Wolves too far often, and it starts with their best players, are not following them on the court.
Yes, and I agree with that as well. I think both things can be true here. Like there is just something that is off between the coaching staff and the players. Julius Randle, by the way, since January 1st is shooting 27% from three. And it's the ones with him where they never come in rhythm. They're the gotta have it points three, and those are,
And
I
I
would
should
say,
look up the splits between catch and shoot and the step backs, because my guess is the catch and shoots are mid 30s, and that would like when the ball goes swing and he catches it wide open and shoots it, no issue. Like those are completely fine, even if they're like, if you're making a third of them, even like there's worse offense than a point per possession in the half court. So, but yeah, it's just like the step backs, like you mentioned, are like 20%. Just
yeah.
awful.
And I mean, frankly, like I really think the main issue in the Laker game was the fact that they were just playing poor defense and fouling too much. And the Lakers are a team that thrive off of that type of a game flow where you're stopping every 5 minutes and taking free throws, and the Wolves are just like, that is something that completely kills them. They need to
You know
keep
how
the ball
bad
on
the
the floor.
Wolves You know how bad the Wolves have to be fouling a Lakers team for no one to complain about the officials?
Pretty unbelievable, isn't it? It's pretty unbelievable. But that, I think that was maybe more their downfall in the Lakers game than anything. I mean, yes, they had no counter to how the Lakers were playing them defensively, and their offense was really, really bad. But I think the offense was a product of just how deflating their defense was to their overall morale. I mean, those are two, like, especially with Reeves and Luke on the floor, like two guys who just excel at drawing fouls and want that to happen. Like it was just never going to work when the game was going like that. Like the ball needs to stay in play, and there needs to be no stoppages for that game to go in the less stoppages in order for that game to go in the Wolves' favor. But to your point, and getting back to the Finch thing, we just need to see the postseason. I mean, we need to see how this team comes out in the postseason, if they're motivated. This is clearly a team that is, that they don't get out of bed wanting to play games every night. Let's just put it that way. Um, they're bored, and the thing is a coach isn't going to change that, man. Like you can bring in Eric Spoelstra to this group, and it's not going to change. Like there's just too many players on this team who just work here, and there's not like the Wemby who comes out in the All-Star game and is clearly setting the tone right away. And I again, pointing to the Lakers game, like you're looking for someone to set the tone in that game. Like Ant's having a hard time doing that because he's essentially getting hard doubled every time he catches the ball. You look to Julius Randle next, who's catching Reeves matchups, he's catching Luka matchups, he's catching Rui matchups at the elbow, and just taking way too much shot clock to get to the basket and passively, like passing the ball out. And the thing that was driving me crazy is he would go and stand 5 feet away from the player that he would pass it to, and I'm like, that's not part of the offense. And like there's just like those types of, just like there's a malaise with just the tone setting at the beginning of the game where it's just like, someone grab this thing, man. Like Jaden grabbed this thing. Like Nas came in and he tried to do his thing. I thought Nas actually played pretty well, but someone needs to do something. Like Dante can only do so much as someone who doesn't touch the ball as much, and is coming off of pin downs, which our teams are guarding much closer now at this point in time. I just, from the top down, like the coaching staff, I don't expect them to set the tone. You expect them to get a little bit more of a reaction out of timeouts and things, and you expect the players to set more of a tone themselves because they actually want to go on and win the game. And there is just a disconnect between those two things, between the coaching staff and the players. So a very long-winded way of putting it, but in terms of the actual Finch thing, to just put it in one sentence, yes, this is the first time that I have legitimately asked questions about Chris Finch over the next couple of years of this franchise. However, I need to see how this team plays in the playoffs.
Agree. With the offense, I don't think they run. I don't think like the simplified offense, the free flowing offense. I don't know if this team could use more structure, more pick and roll. I say that, and I just would worry that they would not run it properly, and it would just turn into the pick and roll wouldn't work, and then Ant would be left with the ball with 8 seconds left on the shot clock and have to hoist something up, which you probably hit half of them or whatever. That's kind of my push and pull of that, and like you mentioned, I'm not really interested in discussing it further, other than like to put a pin in it, right? Basically, and be like, let's see what this looks like when they have. I mean, I'm still incredibly confident they'll be a top 6 seed when they have that week off to prepare against a team they absolutely can beat. No, I'm not willing to listen to an argument that they can't beat any of the 3 through 6 teams. They absolutely can. So let's see what it looks like. Let's see what it looks like with the week off, what they prepare. And like, that's another thing about like the preparation stuff is like when they have that week, they look awesome. And when they have to go right into a next series, they don't.
Hey man,
They
you know
struggle on
what?
that
I'm not. I wouldn't write this team off against the Spurs. I know that people have loved the Spurs, and I
for
know
sure.
that people talk about the Spurs possibly coming out of the West. Now, yes, I would, I absolutely would not pick them in a series against Oklahoma City, and I likely wouldn't pick them in a series against the Spurs. But to act like this team couldn't beat the Spurs in a playoff series is absolutely insane. They clearly can do it. The question is, if they want to and they execute well. I would say anywhere from two. Anywhere from the 2 seed down, they would
Can,
be.
can I float something to you that I don't necessarily believe, but I want to?
Go
What if
for it.
that's what if that's the Clippers? I think the Clippers could beat the Spurs.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't necessarily think you're. I mean, the Niederhauser thing hurts.
True,
Um,
especially for Wemby,
yeah, that hurts their
guarding Wemby.
chances big time.
I just think,
And Kawhi's playing
dude,
at a level that
the Wolves defense was terrible, obviously, in that Clippers game. Their defense on Kawhi was not the problem as much as it was everything. Like Kawhi was just like,
their defense on
holy,
Kawhi
holy
early,
cow.
defense on Kawhi early was a problem. Their defense on Kawhi in the third quarter got much
Sure.
much
Maybe
better.
here's a better point. Like he scores 45 points. 10 of that was the turnovers. Maybe 10 or 15 was bad defense. The next 20 was was him. It was
100%.
insane.
I think it was the second quarter where you're just watching him and you're just like, man, this guy is
At the
unbelievable.
at the very least, if the Wolves are either the 3 or 6 seed and win in the first round, and I think the Spurs are not going to get the an easy first round series if it's the Clippers. I think that team is just like good. They've been good basically for the second half of the season.
It would be I think it would have the chance of being the Nuggets Clippers series from last year.
Nuggets, yeah, it's a
Yeah,
good
the one
point.
that went to 7 games. Like I could very or I'm sorry. The Nuggets Thunder series that went
Sure, yeah,
yeah, well, that went all those games. Yeah.
for sure. All right. Last big picture thing I wanted to bring up before we actually talk about the actual basketball games is all of this complaining and like I still expect them to turn it around. That has been the consistent theme of this version, basically the Anthony Edwards Timber. When you think things are going well, buckle up. When you think that they have hit rock bottom, when you think that they will always come back up. The best example of this was the first Rudy year where everything is going bad. Wemby's sitting there in the draft. You might be giving Utah the 10th best lottery odds. They might like if you don't make the playoffs with this team, it's a really bad look. And they that team started playing better basketball and made the playoffs. Like they turned that it was bad and they turned that around. The next year, not so much. They had that great first month of the season and they were off. But last year, even there was a lot of stuff like we've been talking about now. That was their last season. They made the West Finals. Like every time you count this team out, they always bounce back. And so I expect that to happen. We've talked about it. I expect them to win in round one. They would not be favored or likely to beat the Spurs necessarily, but if you're in the second round against a team that basically has never played in the playoffs outside of H. Barnes, who I don't believe is even in their playoff rotation, or certainly not in their starting lineup, you have a shot. And then my last point relating to this, Houston, Denver, and the Lakers, all the other 3 through 6 teams have gone through this same exact stretch at some point in the season. The Lakers have had stretches of looking terrible as recently as a month ago. The Nuggets 2 seconds ago, the Wolves saw it. They were, trust me, the Nuggets fans were not happy. And the Rockets, same thing. It's not just Twitter burners. Like they have some issues too. Like all those 3 teams are flawed. And while I certainly believe like I'm kind of at the point of like all 3 of these teams are just kind of a step behind at the Thunder. The Wolves are right there with it. So it's like, I think it does require like a full picture view. But something still has to improve. If they get to the end of the season and they're still not or they're still outside the top 10 in both offense and defense, like it's just not good enough.
Yeah, and I think, to your point, it just feels like there's a tension with this group, and that can work in both ways. It can work in the good way, and they can play great basketball, and I think that's what kind of gives them their edge a little bit when they are playing really, really well, and the ball is moving, and they're playing physical. However, when that tension goes the other way, like I just think there's personalities on this team that just there's just it's not unhealthy, it's not toxic or anything like that. I just think there's a little bit of tension. And when it goes the other way, that's when you have the overtly bad body language, the subtleties in the locker room quotes, the
Yeah. I mean, I'll say which play. I don't believe Rudy and Julius get along very well.
Yeah,
And that's off the court. I would guess they're fine. Like I don't think they're bickering. I don't think it's like even an acute thing where like obviously like the game in Toronto last year. Like I think that whatever that was is solved. But like on the court, I don't think those two enjoy playing with each other. That's just certainly not reported. That's just my vibe.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you can kind of see it, like Julius, the especially on the defensive side, that could probably frustrate Rudy a little bit. I mean, he gets left on an island quite a bit, and when Julius is kind of selectively defending, just with the tension, with the tension that I'm kind of talking about, it's like again, it works in a good way. And when it's not working, when it goes the other way, like you get stretches like this. You get the Atlanta game. Like you get these catastrophic losses that feel like there's no rebound from. And I'm not going to change my opinion on this team. Like they could beat Oklahoma City moving forward here. They could win a first round, like they could win the first round of the playoffs. Like I don't think this team is a championship caliber team unless they get some of these things figured out within their personality DNA. They need to like that's my personal opinion. A healthy amount of tension is okay, but man, like there's too much of this that there's just too many times where these just cataclysmic collapses have happened, and the thing with it is you can point to the times in which they've happened too. Like, okay, this one started literally at the end of the first quarter of the Orlando game. I'm not sure what happened, but it happened, and it was hideous for the rest of the game, and that compounded into this road trip. So I just there are these things about this team, and again, we're talking about this on March 12th. This should not be happening. We'll see what happens in April here as the season winds down. But these are at this time last year, like the Wolves were in the middle of that home stretch, where that infamous home stretch that set them up for their Western Conference Finals run, and they need to find the other side of that tension now, and they need to come out with a little bit of an edge here. Because if they don't, then we are going to be singing a wildly different tune here in 3 months.
Yep, and I think it goes back to consistency. There isn't any one single playoff series I think they cannot win. I'm starting to get there with the Thunder though, but that aside, I just even more. I just have a hard. I've almost winning 3 straight Western Conference playoff series. Like this team is just not consistent enough, and I think a lot of it too is like to win a bunch of different playoff series against a bunch of different teams. You got to be able to like have the problem solving skills of like, okay, this matchup is providing this challenge, so we attack it this way. Next team is doing something different this way. We need to. They don't show top to bottom roster, coaching staff, whatever. They don't have the ability to me to like. I think when they get a matchup they like or neutral matchup like that, they shine. They can be awesome, but like they don't have like the ability to win when the matchup doesn't go in their favor. And that's a tall task for like 28 of the 30 teams in the league, right? So like there's no real like shame in that, but like to win the championship, that has like they got to figure that out. And the silver lining, I guess, is like it's either gonna like you can learn that through failure, and the best way is through experience and getting into the playoffs and getting to I think like winning a first round series and getting another series. I think at the very least would be important, but I also kind of think just like bowing out in the second round, it was not necessarily the goal at the end of the season, beginning of the season.
Yep, I completely agree. Again, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Let's see if they can get something rolling here. Let's see if they can get something rolling here, and it can buoy them into what could be a stretch run.
I don't
you just kind of see this. You kind of see the script, like you're saying.
Yeah, I don't disagree with. Let's see if they can get something rolling. I feel like I've been saying that for 3 months, and so like for almost like for my own sanity, like there's still a lot of time left. They can still turn it on, blah, 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 blah. But at a certain point, 66 games into this season.
We're talking about it on March 12th, man. Like I said, like this is, it is mid-March here. Like we are 2 months away from, if I pace this out correctly, we are 2 months away from what would be midway through a first round series. So,
I believe the last game of the regular season is April 12th. So we literally have a month left from today.
Or it would be midway through the conference semifinals. So it's what the kids call nut crunching time. Put it that way.
Just the kids, not the adults.
It's just what I've heard.
Let's actually dig into this Clippers game because I don't know why. I don't have a reason why. I don't know why I said because 153 in regulation, gross, to 128. They just did not come out of the gates ready to play in this basketball game. Ant scores the first 2 points. From there, they turn the ball over 5 straight times and 16 times in the first half altogether. They're down 12-2 before you can even blink, and they do kind of climb back into the game to a certain extent, but like the game ended there. It was kind of over. And the offense was good to fine to solid most of the game, especially like second half was pretty darn good. If they had scored 63 points and weren't down and weren't giving up a billion points, they probably win the game. And I clipped it together and put it out. You can go on my social accounts. And Julius, I thought, were the main culprits of the defense. There's plenty of blame to go around. I thought Dante was pretty brutal. Rudy Gobert, by his standards, was awful, which for every other player is just regular bad. And I don't think Kyle Anderson or Naz Reid covered himself in glory either. But like, it's just so many times, and we've seen this time and time again, where they're both like they're watching the ball. They're not. Their guy back cuts on them and scores a bucket. They're not like going to game plan. Like it's like there's no way that was the plan for the pick and roll coverage on that play. Missed rotations, just all sorts of stuff. And you add on top of that, like sometimes like they were in the correct position and just got like bodied by Kawhi Leonard. It's just bad. It's been a season-long issue, and I saw this kind of right before we went on the show. Via Automatic NBA on X, per NBA stats, among guards who have played 30 minutes per game or more, only James Harden and Luka Doncic have moved less on average than Ant. So this is like tracking numbers based on how much you're running during the game. Only Harden and Luka run less. And among forwards, so only Harden and Luka. Those are two of like, if you're making fun of someone for their defense, it's literally those two.
That's an awesome
And among
stat.
forwards, only it gets better or worse, depending on how you want it. Among forwards, only LeBron James and Kevin Durant move less than Randall. Those are the two oldest guys in the league. At least, again, with the certainly they are, if considering the 30-minute per game filter. Like, that's just a perfect explanation of what Randall and Ant are doing on defense. It's just not good enough. And for both of them, and certainly for Ant, like, they take a lot of the offensive load. We're not asking them to be all defense caliber players. There is a certain level of slippage for a team's best player that is going to come. I'm sure you can go look at Jokic. Shea is probably the best example of like a MVP caliber two-way guy. And I'm sure you can go clip together like lazy defensive whatevers. But like, again, goes back to the gap cannot be this big. There has to be a little bit more to their defensive games. And especially when, like, it does feel like, again, not the only problems in that game. But like, it starts at the top. A lot of this starts at the top. And for defensive wise, I thought Ant and Julius were by far the biggest issues in this Clippers game.
Yeah, I mean, I think specifically early on in the game, what set the tone was how poor the defense was on Kawhi. I mean, I'm not really absolving Jaden of much here, too, over these last couple games. I think he's one of the bigger tone setters defensively, and obviously Rudy, too. Like, there just wasn't an answer for what Kawhi was doing, but they were giving him way too much space. And that was also an issue with the Lakers game as well, because they're trying to close this space so fast and then they're fouling. And so yes, 100% the Julius and Ant defensive thing is an issue. And you can't just try and hide them either, because what ended up being the case in the Clippers was like Ant and Julius were often like getting moved over to Derrick Jones Jr. And Derrick Jones Jr. was an extremely active player and like moving around the floor. And then that's making two players who don't want to move around on that side of the ball move around. And so there's probably a couple ways in which you end up on film there alone. It all comes back to the fact that whether it's the Lakers or whether it's the Clippers, both of those teams were extremely active. Like, they came out wanting to play active hands basketball, get in the gaps, and I think specifically one of the things that's bothering Julius that is probably also impacting his defense too is, you notice now every time he catches the ball out on the perimeter, he is getting destroyed. And it's legal. Like, people are closing in on him super fast, and he has no idea what to do, and people make him claustrophobic. And so that it all comes back to effort, like you said. The movement is one thing. The lack of actually like getting down in a stance and playing defense, stuff that you learn in third grade, is another thing. But it's the level of activity that just, it's two players that refuse to match that, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. But when they're getting defended that way, makes it very, very hard for them on the side of the ball that might impact the defensive side of the ball as well.
Yeah, I think the defensive possession that stood out to me most, and go on my social accounts, it's still my top tweet. It's the last possession of the first half. And the Wolves, the only time they did this all game, where they blitzed Kawhi to get it out of his hand, and the game clock was running down, and they came too early. It should have been later, so that like the Clippers didn't have a chance to run the possession. But like, they blitzed Kawhi, and all Kawhi had to do was make a simple little pass. That person took one dribble, threw it into the paint, and someone got a dunk. Like, there was no rotation behind the play. There was no attention to the game plan of how to, like, they just didn't run that defensive coverage nearly well enough or properly enough. And like, that goes back to like the the difference, like almost the debate of, is the game plan not working or are they not following it? And I think there's obviously, we've already talked about the nuances in there, but like whatever it is, they just aren't, it's not quality enough.
And part of it just reeks of desperation too when you're in some of these situations. Like I just going over, I wanted to pull up the fourth quarter sequence that started that, because the Wolves actually pulled to within, I think, 11, and they went on a little bit of a run in the third quarter, and the defense on Kawhi was picking up a little bit, and you kind of thought like, okay, like especially in the third quarter, like they played pretty well to close out the third quarter. Like they might have something rolling here. I mean, you have a putback on the Clippers side, an effort play that brings the lead to 13. Gobert turns the ball over on the very next possession. It's a Kawhi steal, and then Mathurin goes down and hits a three. Right, so now you're at a disadvantaged spot where you were all of a sudden it was 11 points, and now you're down 16. And then Nas comes down and misses a 30-footer. So that's your desperation shot, right? Like these are the sequences that we see with this team all the time that cause them to come unraveled, where it's like effort play from the opposing team, then turnover that turns into points, then the Wolves come down and try a bad shot, and then that gets turned into points on the other side, and then those are just killer sequences. Like these stretches, I feel like that, like those types of stretches are ones that have just been, I would say they're like a slogan for this team this year. Like it causes them to come unraveled, and it's like it's whether it's Nas is actually a pretty big offender of this. Ant is also a massive offender. Julius being the biggest one of the desperation shots after a turnover, like, oh man, we're down 14 points now. Like we need a shot here. Like we need to get some points. Instead of actually running something that could get them easy points with 5 extremely talented basketball players that carry gravity with them, and they could get something quite easy inside. Like they always choose the hard shot that will get them one more point. And it, like, that's the thing of when you talk about game plan or game plan discipline or offensive discipline, things within that, like that's where that stuff starts to come unraveled, because this team just doesn't have like the mental wherewithal to compile base hits and doubles. Chris Finch has talked about it so much previously of, they want to hit the home run. Ant wants to hit the home run. That just continues to be the case. Like they want to get it all back in a couple possessions, and it doesn't end up being that way.
Yeah. Finch has also said, like, instead of continuing to move the ball during those stretches, they result to like making sure they can get their own game going. And that goes back to their home run comment, which Finch said, I believe, after the Orlando game, like where they're just trying to get the home run play. You're trying to get all 10 points back in one shot. Obviously that's not how basketball works. Let's talk about the Lakers game finally. It's 14. It felt like a blowout, even if it's just 14 points. I'm calling it a blowout. Back-to-back games dating back to the Orlando game prior, where it's just the offense. It's just awful. We've talked about a lot of it, but Ant was especially bad in this game. And again, Ant's offensive game, I mean, I will say, I don't know if you saw this. I put up an article about Ant chasing 30 points per game, and how awesome he's been efficiency-wise. And my buddy texted me in the morning, the morning after the Lakers game, he's like, this is your fault, by the way. And I was just like, thanks for reading. I appreciate that part of it. Ant's had an unbelievably great offensive season. He's been awesome. This was not a lone outlier, but certainly not very often did he play like this. 14 points, 2 of 15 from the field, 1 of 10 from 3. He's kind of saves the stat line with 9 of 10 free throws. A little bit free throw hunty, but I mean, there were correct calls or whatever. And he really struggled against the Lakers gap defense. We talked about this a little earlier, but there is a play where like basically 4 of the 5 Lakers defenders are, one of them's directly guarding Ant, but like Jane's in the corner and his guy is like just loaded up on Ant. Julius's defender on the wing just loaded up on Ant. And Ant, he doesn't take a step back like he did most of the game, but he passes cross court to Julius, and it just the pass was too lobbed, and it gave the defense time to rotate back, and then it leaves Julius to go 1-on-1, which he can score there, but like 1-on-1 with 8 seconds left on the shot clock is a sub point per possession thing for any player. And it's just like, I watched that play and I'm like, if he just passes to Jaden in the corner, Marcus Smart is too far up paying attention to Ant, and Jaden goes right to the rim for either a dunk or a wide open corner three, because like the guy guarding the corner would have had to rotate over, and they just would have gotten a good shot. And like, that's kind of like, there's no way the game plan was to throw a lobbing pass over to Julius on the other side of the court, on the other wing. And then when he didn't, all game, when Ant would pass, almost it led to a bucket almost every other time, because the defense is so loaded up on him. And so when you even just swing the ball a little bit, it ends up in a player. And too many times during this season, it feels like the Wolves offense just like takes the easy way out. We can get a mediocre shot from Ant if we want it. If we just go one, I mean, hey, Julius is one of the better isolation players in the league, both scoring, passing. Like, he's been good with that. But like, I feel like if you're using that because you have to, that's fine. Like, not every possession is going to lead to a wide open dunk. If Ant can save you and grab a cheap point per possession, if Julius can save you and do the same thing, like, those are positive outcomes. But like, if every possession is those, you're going to lose. The math will catch up to you. And so I thought that was a lot of it. Again, poor shooting night. Does Ant hit 3 of 10 instead of 1 of 10? I guess. But like, focusing on that any more than 2 seconds, I think would be disingenuous. And so I just think Ant needed to get off the ball. Yeah, I'll let you talk before I bring up the Rudy of it all in this game.
No, I think you're right, and this also does kind of go back to, because the Laker game and the Clipper game really weren't that different. They were just kind of variants of each other. I think, for me, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but just Julius Randle and the lack of really trying to set the tone early on, and like you said, taking the easy way out offensively. Early on, the Lakers had Rui Hachimura on him, and Luka switched onto him a couple times. Like, those are just matchups that you have to punish, and take to the basket. And like, I think the thing that was bothersome about that one, specifically for me with Julius early on, was the Lakers were begging him to be the Julius Randle of early season, where you draw 2 guys and you just make the easy pass and you get the ball moving early, and like, there's your tone setter. But there were just too many times where he's passing out of it, spacing poorly. And again, with Ant being guarded the way that he was, you could not afford to do that. And so that was kind of where the main issue I saw early on was. But then too, like, the other thing was like, I look at Ayo Dosunmu as someone who was, he ended the game, I think, with 13 points. He was 6 of 8 from the field. For the first 3 quarters of that game, he was relatively quiet, and I think that speaks to the transition aspect of things, where the Wolves were just not able to play with any sort of pace or transition because they were fouling too much on the defensive end. Reeves was getting to the line, and that ended up, he had multiple 4-point plays. He was getting to the line, and early on, the Wolves were doing a great job of not biting on the pump fakes with Luka and Reeves, and then they got impatient later in the game, and that's when the knife started getting twisted. And so the lack of attention to detail, really, or the lack of patience, I guess, would probably be a better way of putting it, on the defensive side of the ball, I think really hurt them. And when they're spending all night lining up on the free throw line and getting on the hash marks, it takes the wind out of their sails. And again, like I said, the Lakers thrive on a game like that. That's what they want to do. And it's not conducive to the Wolves, and especially the bench that we talked about earlier as well, something that could have really been a superpower for them in this game. And then again, you want to talk about the Rudy aspect of it all, I'll go ahead and lob it up, ball on a tee for you. The DeAndre Ayton stuff early in the game, you want to talk about a tone setter for the Lakers. Luka didn't start out well at all. Reeves didn't start out too great either. Luka was especially pretty putrid to start the game in the first quarter, and no one was really wanting to score for LA. But DeAndre Ayton had a little crunk juice when he was on the bench. He got his water bottle of crunk juice that he writes, and came into the game and essentially took it over and got things started for the Lakers. And Rudy Gobert didn't have much of an answer for it.
Yeah, actually, with Rudy, I wasn't actually planning on talking about the rebounding, but yeah, like 14 Laker offensive rebounds goes to like the hustle and the game plan not even game plan focus, but like just maybe this is more the Clippers game, but like guys just ducking in for no one boxing them out, guys ducking in for easy tip outs or easy offensive rebounds. But yeah, like if DeAndre Ayton's gonna more or less outplay Rudy Gobert, you're in trouble. But
And that would be the
offensively with
second time that happened this year too, because he did it at
yeah,
Target Center early this year too at the buzzer beater game that Luka didn't play. I mean, DeAndre Ayton had a hell of a game. I think it was November, I want to say, when Reeves hit the buzzer beating shot. That's 2 times now that Rudy Gobert's been had by DeAndre Ayton, who's had a brutal last month and a half.
yeah. It reminds me of the playoffs because like I thought Rudy in the Raptors game was awesome, and it just feels like you can't like if you can bottle that up again and against a solid starting rotate or center rotation in the Raptors, like you can just bottle that. If that's the Rudy Gobert you're getting, that's great. But I kind of want to talk about offense in terms of the pick and roll. If you're gonna run pick and roll with Rudy, pass on the damn ball. That's kind of where I'm at. I trust me, I get the hesitation there. I really do. But like so many times when like the opposing defense brings 2 to the ball to get it out of Ant's hands and either like tries to dribble around it or passes to someone on the wing and it just makes it easy on the defense to recover. That pass has to go to Rudy rolling to the rim. It just has to. Um because like the offense just doesn't Ant said this after the Denver game. Like my R4 is better than their 3. And in that game, he consistently passed it to Rudy on the short roll, and Rudy made the correct play pretty much every time. Rudy's hands are the problem. I
But
don't
that,
think.
yeah, I was going to say that didn't happen in the Orlando game, which is where I think maybe things started to go downhill the other direction.
I mean, they've been just ignoring him, and some of the times they pass to him are not the right moments, and I feel like you can tell they're like, oh, you didn't catch that. It's like you threw a bad pass. And trust me, I'm not absolving Rudy of everything, right? Like when people yell at him, catch the damn ball, that applies. That's the right reaction a lot of the time. And he admitted so. I think in that Orlando game, he fumbled the pass and said so after the game, like that's on me. But like I just think in the short roll when you got to get him, I think he's been good in that action. Like when you get him, it's not because his hands don't come into play. There's no traffic to catch the ball in. That's like the type of action I'm talking about, where it's just a simple pass to Rudy, and you have four Wolves players on 3. And I understand the hesitancy because he doesn't all like when there's no one in the lane. Obviously, anyone's good and he'll run and dunk the ball. And sometimes he'll try to go for a layup. And so like Rudy's decision making has to be a little better. But I think it's getting Rudy the ball in the middle of the court in space, I think ends up working out better than Ant trying to dribble around 2 defenders or passing to the wrong player. It's just like if you're gonna run, like that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. Like when this team does this, you respond this way. Like being a robot with the game plan of like, I think the game plan is the ball goes to Rudy there in
Yeah.
space, and you go downhill. And if there was a play, it was in the Clipper game specifically where Ant didn't pass the ball to Rudy. He more or less half successfully dribbled around 2 defenders, tried to do the skip pass to the corner, and the defender, because he didn't have to guard Rudy, didn't move and just stole the ball. And if Ant had passed to Rudy on the roll, and again, Ant is not the only person not passing to Rudy, but Ant's the primary pick and roll ball handler. If
Which
he just passed the ball,
Ant falling into skip pass territory has been his kryptonite previously too on the pick and roll.
yeah. And so if Ant passes the ball to Rudy, there's the only defender possibly left to rotate over would have had to leave Julius Randle wide open in the corner. And again, Julius Randle 3-pointers aren't the best. Like wide open Julius Randle 3-pointer in the corner is a positive result to a possession. I just think that the pass has to go there. And I get the hesitation with his hands. I get the hesitations of him when he should pass, like going up for a contested layup that I think we all feel like is not a high percentage shot. But I'm at the point where it's just like, then if you're not willing to pass to Rudy there, then the current version of this team is just fundamentally broken. You don't have a roster that works together. And I just think I would love to see a game where they just passed to Rudy in the short roll like 10 times, like in a row, like just ran Rudy, Ant pick and roll, 2 guys come to Ant, or do it long enough and successfully enough that they stop doing that. And then you get just a single Ant pick and roll where he can just actually drive to the rim. I just I think like that pass has to go to Rudy, and it's just another like red flag that especially lately it never gets there.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, it's like I don't think the Orlando thing was a I don't think that was a complete thing to write off the radar. Like there were multiple passes that were given to Rudy on the pick and roll, which they weren't great passes, right? Like they were the super fast the super fast like chest pass from Ant that it just went right off Rudy's hands out of bounds. But I think the thing with Ant that I've realized is like it takes a really long time to build that trust back, and it has been built up and broken with Rudy. So broken, I put that in quotation marks. It's been built up and broken with Rudy so many times over their tenure of them playing together. And so, yes, I completely agree. Was it one field goal attempt for Rudy in the LA game? I think it was one field goal attempt.
Yeah. Oh, one.
Yeah. So I mean, those are the types of situations like that. Just that can't happen.
He
And
had 5 offensive rebounds. That's just like some of that. Like it's just like really he didn't have a shot. He didn't have more than one shot attempt for 5 offensive rebounds. That's like just a weird quirk.
And the thing with Rudy is not only has he gotten better playing out of the short roll, but he actually, I mean, it has been impressive to see his improvement around the rim. I mean, he had a couple really nice finishes, not only in the Orlando game, but I mean, it's been actually like legitimately impressive to see his improvement there this year. I mean, no, he's not Jokic around the rim. Like we understand that, we all get that, but it's serviceable enough to at least give him looks when he's diving to the rim because it's very important that he draws one or two people. A keyword emphasis and keyword on one. um, and so, like you said, when people are playing off of him, it makes it so much easier to intercept the pass. And this gap defense that the Clippers were playing and the Lakers were playing, like this super aggressive blitzing screens, putting 2 guys on the perimeter, that becomes so much easier when you don't even look at Rudy. And so it's imperative for them moving forward. I don't want to belabor the point, but they need to do that moving forward. And I'd actually be curious to see what the Wolves record is when Rudy has like 5 or more assists. It's probably pretty good, I would imagine. Doesn't happen super often, but I'd imagine it's probably pretty good. 100%. Like if they're not going to use it, then this roster needs to be deconstructed maybe a little bit faster than we had talked about earlier.
Yeah. And again, this is premature, still got time left, but I think trading Julius Randle in the offseason for a guard that can be like a more of a lead guard, if you can get that type of trade done or trade for picks that can be rerouted, all that stuff, I think that makes the roster make a whole lot more sense. And maybe at that point, again, especially if we're looking for more, maybe you're packaging Dante with that to get to a salary level. Blah. Again, way too early to talk about this. But that to me, that feels like because Rudy is even if they never figure out this pick and roll stuff we're talking about, Rudy's just so imperative defensively that I don't think, as much as like I would bag on Julius's defense, I don't think Julius is the only reason or even the primary reason why the non-Rudy minutes are so bad defensively. Right? Like it goes deeper than just Julius. It goes deeper than even just Nas. Right? Like
it's a lack of rebounding, frankly. I mean, like the rebounding
lack of a lot of things.
The porous.
And you hope, and then obviously, like Johan Berenshade will need to play next year. Not to the level, not to the 30 minutes a night level that kind of their big rotation plays now, but like 15 minutes a night probably, certainly. Or I mean, what does Rudy average? Like 32? So you just imagine there's 16 minutes right there. Can you have Rudy or Berenger on the court almost all of the game? Or do you try to, or like the real, I think a real, if you're really looking to shake up the rosters, would be to trade like Rudy and really go like with a 5-out system. But at least with this year's team, it's really difficult to see how that team would defend. Yeah. Any other thoughts before we close out this call it crabby episode of 2 words?
No, I have none. It's been a bad week of sleep. It's been a bad week of basketball. No more 10 o'clock games, please. I think they might actually still have one more this year.
9 o'clock Central out in San Francisco.
It's so bad. The 10 o'clock games need to go. Those need to go. I get the coast to coast thing, like what they're trying to do, but man, 1 o'clock finish. Come on.
I will not be watching that game live. Should I be? Because I cover the team, maybe. But we're gonna go with steak in a movie with the wife instead. That seems like a better.
Sounds so much better.
We'll circle back with in the morning, because it's like also like maybe the last thing here. Like ignoring the scoreboard, none of the losses in and of themselves are all that terrible, right? Orlando at home isn't great, but like they're a half decent team in and of itself. Whatever. The Lakers at home, same thing, or Lakers on the road. And then like the Clippers are playing really well. So it's like, it's just like the all three of them in succession and what they look like and the scoreboard is it's all brutal.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'll probably be right now that the game schedule will get back to normal here in the next few days. I'd like to get some up on Canis just about, looking back at the last week, because the Oklahoma City game will be happening by then, and we'll probably have a better picture of really kind of what the last 15 games have been in general and what that tells us. So I'll pull a couple storylines out of that and look to get something up on Canis about that. But as of right now, man, what would you want to write about? Hey, this sucks right now.
Well, go up on Canis Hoopus right now. Front page, the Timberwolves have hit rock bottom, hopefully, by Ryan Eichten. There you go. I wrote exactly what you said.
Yeah, I don't want to rain on that parade. I don't want to rain on that parade further. I'll let people read that.
That was my point of the article, is if this isn't rock bottom, there's a No Country for Old Men. Aaron Gleeman tweets this out about the Twins. It's a clip from No Country for Old Men where Tommy Lee Jones is asked, "Is that trouble?" And he said, if it ain't, it'll do until it gets here. If this isn't rock bottom, it'll do until it gets here. And if it's not rock bottom, help us all, because this team's in trouble.
If you want to grieve further, go read Ryan's piece. It is very, very good. But yeah, for lack of a better term, I will not create double trouble.
Well, the Wolves will try to avoid if they lose to Golden State without Steph and Jimmy. Good God, please win, and then you can lose to OKC on noon on a Sunday. What is this, the NFL?
It's another nap time game.
Both, like, it's sleeping the other way, right? Like the late night games are sleepy because you're in bed, and noon on a Sunday, like we're mid-donut. We're like on donut 1.5 at that point. All right, Andrew, anything else before we head out?
Nothing from me. Let's maybe hope for better days ahead, huh?
It can't be much worse. All right, thank you everyone for listening. Leo and I'll be back next week. Go Wolves.